For years, Rick Ross built one of the strongest images in hip-hop. The luxury cars, the massive mansion, the expensive jewelry, the private jet, and the biggest boss mentality became more than just a brand. It became his identity. But now, after a series of unexpected moments, that carefully created image is facing one of its biggest challenges yet. The conversation around Rick Ross has exploded once again, and this time it's not just random internet criticism. Two of the biggest names connected to his story, Drake and 50 Cent, have entered the conversation, and their reactions have made fans question what is really happening behind the scenes. For years, Ross appeared untouchable. He had hit records, major business ventures, a powerful music label, and a reputation as one of the most respected figures in rap. But recently, every headline seems to bring another controversy. From his public feud with Drake to viral moments that had fans debating his lifestyle, the pressure has continued to build. And now, people are asking a question that would have seemed impossible years ago. Is the boss image starting to crack? The timing couldn't be more dramatic. While Rick Ross continues to defend his success and explain the situation, critics believe the damage has already been done. Meanwhile, Drake's responses and 50 Cent's long history of trolling have added even more fuel to the fire. But the biggest twist is that this story may not actually be about money at all. It may be about something even harder to rebuild: reputation. Because in hip-hop, perception can be everything. A single viral moment can change the way millions of people view an artist who spent decades building an empire. So what really happened behind the scenes? Did Drake and 50 Cent expose a weakness in Rick Ross' carefully built image? Or is this just another chapter in a long career filled with controversy? The answer might surprise you. Rick Ross has always understood the power of an image. Long before social media turned celebrities into non-stop brands, Ross mastered the art creating a larger-than-life persona. The oversized sunglasses, the luxury lifestyle, the powerful voice, and the constant display of success all became symbols of the character he built over decades. To millions of fans, Rick Ross was not just a rapper. He represented ambition, wealth, confidence, and the idea of becoming a boss against all odds. Born William Leonard Roberts II, Rick Ross' journey to the top of hip-hop was far from ordinary. Before becoming one of the biggest names in rap, his life looked completely different. He grew up in Florida and later attended college on a football scholarship, showing early signs of discipline and determination. Like many artists who eventually find success, his path included several different chapters before music became his main focus. The turning point came in the mid-2000s when Rick Ross entered the spotlight with his breakout single, Hustlin'. The song became a massive success and introduced the world to his signature style. The phrase, "Every day I'm hustlin'," quickly became one of the most recognizable lines in modern rap, and suddenly Ross went from being an unknown artist to one of the most talked-about newcomers in the industry. His rise happened at the perfect time. Hip-hop was entering an era where branding and personality became just as important as the music itself. Artists were no longer selling only songs. They were selling lifestyles. Rick Ross understood that better than most. He created a world around himself filled with private jets, expensive watches, luxury vehicles, and elite business moves. After signing major deals and gaining industry support, Ross continued building momentum. His debut album, Port Miami, became a major success and established him as a serious force in rap. Instead of fading after one hit record, he continued releasing successful projects and eventually became one of the most consistent artists of his generation. But what truly separated Rick Ross from many others was his ability to transform himself into a brand. He created Maybach Music Group, built a strong roster of artists, and expanded his influence beyond music. The boss persona became so closely connected to him that fans often viewed the character and the person as one. Over the years, Ross also developed strong relationships throughout the music industry. One of the most important connections of his career was with Drake. At one point, the two artists were considered one of the strongest collaborations in hip-hop. Their chemistry produced major records, and their partnership helped both artists maintain their positions at the top of the industry. For years, Drake openly showed respect for Rick Ross. Their collaborations became fan favorites, and many people believed a full joint project between them could have become one of the biggest events in rap history. Their relationship represented a powerful alliance between two successful artists from different generations. However, the music industry is constantly changing, and relationships that appear unbreakable can sometimes shift overnight. As new rivalries developed and different sides formed within hip-hop, the friendship between Rick Ross and Drake began to experience serious tension. At the center of the current controversy is the question of whether Rick Ross' public image has changed. Critics argue that the same luxury lifestyle that once made him one of the most respected figures in rap has now become the thing people are questioning. Every unusual moment, every viral clip, and every public disagreement gets analyzed by fans around the world. One of the biggest examples came during the growing tension between Rick Ross and Drake. What started as subtle disagreements eventually became a public back and forth involving diss tracks, social media posts, and personal comments. Suddenly, a relationship that once represented loyalty and friendship became one of the most discussed rivalries in hip-hop. Then came the involvement of 50 Cent, someone who has had a long history of criticizing other artists and creating viral moments through his public comments. Because of his reputation for calling out celebrities, every reaction from 50 Cent immediately attracted attention. When his name entered a conversation surrounding Rick Ross, it added another layer of pressure. The reason this situation became so interesting is because Rick Ross has always presented himself as someone who cannot be shaken. His entire brand has been built around confidence and control. So when fans began seeing moments where that image was being challenged, the reaction became much bigger than a normal celebrity controversy. But behind all the jokes, memes, and online debates is a more complicated story. Rick Ross is still a successful businessman with multiple ventures outside of music. His career achievements are undeniable, and his influence in hip-hop remains significant. The real question is not simply whether Rick Ross is successful or not. The bigger question is whether the public perception of him has changed. In entertainment, perception can sometimes become just as important as reality. An artist can have millions of dollars and still face criticism if people believe the image they built is losing its power. And that is exactly why this latest situation has attracted so much attention. It is not just about a feud, a viral moment, or a few comments online. It represents a much bigger conversation about legacy, reputation, and what happens when one of hip-hop's most confident personalities finds himself at the center of a storm. As Drake and 50 Cent continue to add fuel to the conversation, fans are now watching closely to see what happens next. Because when someone has spent years building the image of a boss, any sign of weakness becomes a headline. And Rick Ross is now facing one of the biggest tests of his career. For years, Rick Ross appeared to have mastered the formula for staying on top. He had built a reputation around confidence, success, and control. But the moment his relationship with Drake began to collapse, the conversation around him changed dramatically. What was once viewed as one of hip-hop's strongest partnerships suddenly became one of the industry's most talked about conflicts. The first major shift happened when tension started appearing between two artists who had spent years showing each other respect. Rick Ross and Drake were not just occasional collaborators. Their names were connected through some of the biggest records of their careers. Their chemistry was undeniable, and fans often wondered if they would eventually create a full project together. For a long time, Rick Ross openly praised Drake. He spoke about their friendship, their history, and how Drake had earned his place in hip-hop. But then everything changed, and fans began noticing small signs that something was different behind the scenes. The situation became impossible to ignore when Rick Ross appeared to take a side during the growing conflict involving Drake and other major artists. Suddenly, the same person who once stood beside Drake was now being viewed as someone moving in the opposite direction. Then came the social media moves that sent fans into a frenzy. A simple unfollow became one of the biggest talking points online because, in today's entertainment world, small digital actions can create massive reactions. Fans immediately started asking, why now? What happened behind closed doors? Was this the beginning of the end of one of hip-hop's most unexpected friendships? The answer appeared to become clearer when Drake responded. When Drake released his response track during the heated rap exchanges, many fans believed some of his lines were aimed directly at Rick Ross. The comments were not just about music. They touched on Ross' career, his history, and the role Drake played in some of his biggest moments. That is where the situation became much more personal. For years, Rick Ross had built the image of someone who could stand alone. He presented himself as an artist who created his own lane and built his own empire. But critics began pointing out that many of his biggest streaming successes involved collaborations with Drake. Songs that became fan favorites were repeatedly brought into the conversation. Instead of focusing only on the music, the debate shifted toward influence, loyalty, and who helped who during their careers. That was the first major twist. The conflict was no longer just about two rappers exchanging words. It became a debate about legacy. Was Rick Ross' success strong enough to stand completely on its own, or did his connection with Drake play a bigger role than many people wanted to admit? As the online conversation exploded, Rick Ross answered back. Instead of staying silent, he entered the battle with his own response, defending his position and making it clear that he was not backing down. His response continued the back and forth, bringing up accusations and frustrations that suggested the disagreement went much deeper than a simple rap rivalry. Ross claimed the issue was not only about music. According to him, certain events behind the scenes changed how he viewed Drake. The disagreement became about loyalty, respect, and personal relationships within the industry. This created an even bigger storyline because fans started choosing sides. Some believed Rick Ross was standing up for himself and refusing to let anyone rewrite his history. Others felt that challenging Drake publicly was a risky move because Drake's influence and popularity remain enormous. But just when people thought the conflict could not become more intense, another major name entered the discussion: 50 Cent. Few people in hip-hop understand controversy better than 50 Cent throughout his career. He has built a reputation for making bold statements, creating viral moments, and using humor to criticize his rivals. His history with Rick Ross goes back many years, making his involvement instantly interesting. The rivalry between Rick Ross and 50 Cent has been one of the most memorable conflicts in modern hip-hop. Their exchanges have included music, interviews, and public comments that kept fans entertained for years. So when 50 Cent appeared to react to the situation surrounding Rick Ross, many people viewed it as another reminder of how difficult things had become for Ross. The timing made everything even more dramatic. Rick Ross was already dealing with questions surrounding his feud with Drake, and now another longtime critic was adding more attention to the situation. Instead of one opponent, the conversation now involved multiple voices questioning his image. But the biggest issue was not necessarily what 50 Cent or Drake said. The biggest issue was how quickly the public reaction changed. For years, Rick Ross was the person making headlines because of his success. He was the person showing the luxury lifestyle, celebrating wins, and presenting himself as untouchable. Now, he was making headlines because people were questioning him. That difference completely changed the narrative. Another major moment came when fans started analyzing Rick Ross' public appearances and lifestyle choices. Images and videos that normally would have been ignored suddenly became evidence in a much larger debate. A commercial flight appearance became a viral topic. Some people questioned why someone known for private jet travel would be flying with regular passengers. Others argued that there was nothing unusual about it, and that successful people often make practical decisions. Ross later explained that his private jet situation was related to upgrades and maintenance. But by that point, the internet had already created its own story. This became another example of how powerful perception can be. The question was no longer simply, what happened? The question became, do people still believe the image? That is the hardest challenge for any celebrity. Money can be earned again. Songs can be released again. Businesses can grow again. But once public perception begins changing, rebuilding that image can be extremely difficult. And that is where the conflict reached its first major turning point. Rick Ross was no longer fighting only against Drake or 50 Cent. He was fighting against a larger conversation about whether the boss persona he created decades ago could survive in an era where every moment is recorded, analyzed, and judged by millions of people. The next chapter will become even more intense because the controversy was about to move beyond music and into the world of public opinion, business, and reputation. And once that happened, there was no easy way to control the story. The situation surrounding Rick Ross continued to grow far beyond a simple rap disagreement. What started as tension between former collaborators had now transformed into a much bigger conversation about reputation, influence, and whether one of hip-hop's most recognizable personalities was facing a serious image crisis. The biggest challenge for Rick Ross was not the words being exchanged. It was the fact that every new moment seemed to add another layer to the story. In the past, controversy often came and went quickly, but this time, the internet kept the conversation alive, with fans analyzing every interview, every social media post, and every public appearance. For someone who built his career around appearing untouchable, that created a completely different kind of pressure. The boss image was always about control. Rick Ross presented himself as someone who had already achieved everything people were chasing. The expensive lifestyle, the business moves, and the confidence were all part of a carefully built identity. But now, critics were questioning whether the image was stronger than the reality. One of the biggest viral moments came when fans noticed Rick Ross traveling on a commercial flight. Under normal circumstances, there would be nothing unusual about a successful celebrity choosing to fly commercially. Many wealthy people make similar choices for convenience, privacy, or timing. However, because Rick Ross had spent years highlighting his private jet lifestyle, the moment immediately became a major talking point. The internet does not always judge situations based on facts alone. It judges based on expectations. And the expectation created around Rick Ross was that he represented unlimited luxury. When people saw something that did not match that expectation, the reaction was immediate. Memes spread, discussions exploded. Critics began asking questions. Supporters defended him, explaining that successful people do not have to prove their wealth every second. Rick Ross eventually addressed the situation, explaining that his private jet was undergoing upgrades, including expensive technology improvements. His explanation suggested there was no financial issue behind the decision. But by then, the conversation had already shifted. The story was no longer about a flight. It became about whether the public still believed the character Rick Ross had created. At the same time, another controversy began adding pressure: the reaction to performances and touring situation. Online discussions surrounding ticket sales and promotions created another wave of criticism. Some people interpreted discounts and promotional offers as a sign that demand had changed. Others argued that discounts are common in the entertainment industry and do not necessarily represent a decline in popularity. But once again, perception became the main battle. Every detail was being examined through the lens of the Drake feud. The timing made everything more intense. Drake had continued maintaining a dominant presence in music, while fans compared the two artists' current positions. Supporters of Drake argued that the rivalry highlighted a difference in momentum, while Ross supporters pointed to his long-term achievements and business success. Then came another major twist. The feud started affecting how fans viewed Rick Ross' career history. For years, Ross had been praised for his ability to create unforgettable collaborations. His connection with some of the biggest artists in the world helped him remain relevant across multiple generations. But critics began using those same collaborations as a talking point. They argued that some of Ross' biggest modern moments were connected to other artists, especially Drake. This created a debate over legacy and independence. The question became uncomfortable. How much of an artist's success comes from their own ability, and how much comes from the powerful relationships they build? For Rick Ross, this was a complicated conversation because both sides had arguments. There was no denying his achievements. He created successful albums, built a major music company, and expanded into business ventures that went beyond rap. But there was also no denying that public perception had changed. The biggest reveal in this entire situation was that the real battle was never about money. It was about image. A celebrity can survive criticism. A celebrity can survive a failed project. A celebrity can even survive a public disagreement. But when the identity they built becomes a subject of debate, the challenge becomes much harder. Rick Ross had spent years convincing the world that he was the ultimate example of success. Now, critics were asking whether that image still carried the same power. Meanwhile, Drake's involvement made the situation even more difficult because their history gave the conflict emotional weight. This was not just another industry rivalry. It involved two artists who once publicly respected each other. That made every comment feel more personal. And with 50 Cent adding his own perspective, the pressure increased even further. because 50 Cent understood exactly how powerful public narratives could be. A single comment from him could create headlines and restart old conversations. As the situation continued developing, one thing became clear. Rick Ross was facing a battle unlike any other in his career. He was not fighting for a record deal. He was not fighting for a hit song. He was fighting to protect the image that had made him a superstar. The shocking reality was that the biggest threat to Rick Ross was not another rapper. It was a possibility that people might start seeing the boss differently. And once the public starts questioning an image, the next reaction can be impossible to predict. As the Rick Ross controversy continued spreading across social media, the reaction from fans and people within the music industry became impossible to ignore. What started as a disagreement between artists quickly turned into a much larger conversation about loyalty, legacy, and the changing landscape of hip-hop. The internet became the main battlefield. Every interview clip, every social media post, and every public appearance was analyzed by millions of people. Fans who had followed Rick Ross for years suddenly found themselves debating whether the boss image that made him famous was still as powerful as it once was. One side of the conversation defended Ross strongly. Supporters argued that his career achievements could not be erased by a few viral moments or online criticism. They pointed out that Rick Ross had spent nearly 2 decades building a successful career, creating hit records, launching Maybach Music Group, and developing businesses outside of music. For many fans, the idea that Rick Ross was somehow finished was unrealistic. They argued that success should be measured by the entire body of work, not by one controversy or one difficult period. Supporters also pushed back against the idea that flying commercial or facing criticism meant someone was struggling. They pointed out that many wealthy individuals make practical decisions every day, and that public figures are often judged more harshly because every action becomes entertainment. However, another group of fans saw the situation differently. Critics believed the controversy was not really about one flight, one feud, or one comment. They believed it was about a pattern of moments that had slowly changed the public's perception of Rick Ross. To them, the issue was a contrast between the powerful image Ross created and the questions now surrounding him. They argued that when an artist builds an identity around being untouchable, every moment that challenges that identity becomes much more significant. The Drake situation became the biggest factor driving these conversations. Many fans were surprised to see 2 artists who once appeared so close become public rivals. Their collaborations had created some of the most memorable moments in modern hip-hop, so seeing that relationship fall apart felt unexpected. Some fans believed Drake had the advantage because of his current commercial success and global influence. They pointed to his ability to dominate conversations, create viral moments, and maintain a massive worldwide audience. Others defended Rick Ross by saying that longevity matters. They argued that Ross had already proven himself, and that one rivalry could not erase decades of accomplishments. The involvement of 50 Cent added another layer to the discussion. Because 50 Cent has a long history of making controversial comments and engaging in public rivalries, many fans expected him to take advantage of the situation. His reactions created additional headlines and reminded people of the old tension between him and Ross. Some viewers saw 50 Cent's comments as entertainment and part of the competitive nature of hip-hop. Others felt that his criticism was another example of opponents trying to challenge Ross when he appeared vulnerable. Beyond fans, the music industry also watched closely. Artists, commentators, and media personalities began discussing what the situation represented. Many pointed out that hip-hop has always been built on competition, but modern social media has changed how those conflicts play out. In previous generations, disagreements were mainly expressed through music. Today, every tweet, Instagram post, interview, and viral clip becomes part of the story. That means artists are no longer just managing their music careers. They are managing their entire public identity. Rick Ross became an example of this new reality. The controversy showed how quickly a successful artist can move from being celebrated for an image to being questioned because of that same image. Industry observers also discussed the importance of business outside of music. Many pointed out that Rick Ross has built multiple income streams, including investments and brand partnerships, which make the idea of a simple fall from success far more complicated. The debate became less about whether Ross had money and more about whether his cultural influence had changed. That distinction mattered. A person can remain financially successful while facing challenges in public perception. In entertainment, reputation and popularity often carry their own value. The reaction from younger fans was especially interesting because many discovered Rick Ross during the Drake era rather than his early career. For them, the rivalry created a new way to view his legacy. Older fans remember the rise of Port of Miami, the creation of Maybach Music Group, and the impact Ross had during his peak years. Younger audiences focused more on current trends, streaming numbers, and viral moments. This created a generational debate about how artists should be judged. Should a legendary career protect someone from criticism? Or should current relevance determine how fans view an artist today? Those questions continued dominating conversations online. Even critics who questioned Ross' current situation had to acknowledge one important fact. Very few artists have maintained relevance for as long as he has. His ability to stay connected to hip-hop culture through multiple eras remains a major achievement. At the same time, the controversy revealed a difficult truth about celebrity branding. The same image that creates success can eventually become a target. Rick Ross spent years convincing audiences that he represented the ultimate version of success. Now, every moment that challenges that image receives enormous attention. The public reaction showed that this story was much bigger than a disagreement between rappers. It became a discussion about fame, reputation, and what happens when a carefully created persona faces unexpected pressure. And as the debate continued, one question remained unanswered. Would Rick Ross be able to turn the criticism into another chapter of his comeback story? Or would this moment permanently change the way fans view the man behind the boss image? After all the controversy, the criticism, and the endless debate surrounding Rick Ross, the biggest surprise is that the story may not be about what everyone originally thought. At first, many people believed this was a simple question of money. The commercial flight, the private jet discussions, the ticket sales conversations, and the online jokes all created one major headline. Is Rick Ross losing everything? But the deeper reality tells a much more complicated story. Because the real battle was never just about finances. It was about perception. For decades, Rick Ross carefully built one of the strongest identities in hip-hop. He was not only selling music, he was selling a vision. The luxury lifestyle, the confidence, the business mindset, and the boss mentality became a brand that millions of people recognized. But when that image started facing public challenges, something unexpected happened. The conversation changed. People stopped asking how successful Rick Ross was and started asking whether they still believed the image. That shift is what made the situation so powerful. A celebrity can survive criticism. A celebrity can survive a disappointing project. A celebrity can even survive a public feud. But rebuilding trust in an image that took decades to create is a completely different challenge. The biggest twist is that Rick Ross may not actually be fighting against financial problems at all. Instead, he may be dealing with something far more difficult, a battle over relevance and reputation. Despite the jokes and criticism, Rick Ross still has major accomplishments behind his name. His music catalog, business ventures, and influence in hip-hop cannot simply disappear because of online conversations. But the internet works differently now. A single viral moment can sometimes overpower years of success. That is exactly what happened when fans began connecting every recent controversy together. The Drake fallout, the 50 Cent reactions, the viral airport moments, and the public debates all became part of one larger storyline. Suddenly, people were not viewing each event separately. They were building a narrative. And once a narrative takes over online, controlling it becomes extremely difficult. This is where the future of Rick Ross' public image becomes interesting. Throughout his career, Ross has faced criticism before. He has dealt with questions about his past, his persona, and his decisions. But every time, he found a way to continue moving forward. That history suggests that this could become another challenge he overcomes. However, the difference this time is the environment. Social media has changed everything. In the past, an artist could release a new album, give a few interviews, and move beyond controversy. Today, old clips, new reactions, memes, and fan debates can keep a story alive for months or even years. For Rick Ross, That means the next move matters more than ever. Will he continue focusing on business and music while ignoring the noise? Will he address the criticism directly? Or will he create another moment that reminds everyone why he became one of hip-hop's most recognizable figures? That unanswered question is what makes this story far from over. Meanwhile, Drake's role in the situation continues to make the conversation even bigger. Their history makes this rivalry different from a normal rap conflict. This was not just two artists competing. This was two people who once appeared to have genuine respect for each other. That is why every exchange received so much attention. Fans were not only watching a feud, they were watching the collapse of a relationship that once seemed almost impossible to break. And with 50 Cent involved, the pressure became even greater. His ability to create viral moments means that any comment or reaction can instantly restart the conversation. But perhaps the most surprising part of this entire situation is that Rick Ross' biggest challenge may also become his biggest opportunity. Hip-hop history is filled with artists who face public criticism and later turn those moments into motivation. Sometimes controversy creates a new chapter instead of ending the old one. The same moment that damages an image can also force an artist to evolve. So the final question remains, is Rick Ross truly losing control of the boss image he spent years building? Or is this simply another test that he will eventually overcome? Because one thing is certain, Rick Ross has never been a stranger to controversy. From the beginning of his career, he has faced questions, criticism, and unexpected challenges. Yet every time people counted him out, he found a way to stay in the conversation. And now, as Drake, 50 Cent, fans, and critics continue watching closely, the next move could define the next era of Rick Ross' career. The story is not finished. The biggest twist may still be coming. Because sometimes the moment when everyone thinks a person is falling apart is actually the moment before the biggest comeback. So, what do you think about the entire Rick Ross situation? Do you believe this is just another temporary controversy that will eventually disappear? Or do you think the boss image he built over the years has taken a serious hit? The debate is bigger than one viral moment, one feud, or one headline. It raises questions about loyalty, reputation, and what it really takes to maintain a legendary status in hip-hop. Rick Ross has created a powerful legacy, but now fans are watching closely to see how he handles this new chapter. Do you think Drake and 50 Cent made valid points? Or do you believe critics are simply trying to tear down someone who has already proven himself? Drop your thoughts in the comments because we want to hear your side of the story. Who do you think has the advantage in this situation? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest updates, controversies, and deep dives into the biggest stories in entertainment. Share this video with someone who follows hip-hop and wants to know what is really happening behind the headlines. The story is still developing, and the next move could change everything. Stay tuned because we'll continue bringing you the biggest updates, reactions, and twists as they happen.